Even strong candidates fail ALT interviews because of small mistakes. And today I'm going to answer that question and help you navigate your ALT interviews with ease. Hello, my name is Opendanais Barasa. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I live and work in Japan as an English teacher. Many of you guys who are my subscribers or people who are just watching these interviews probably are preparing for an ALT interview, or you failed a previous ALT interview and you're trying to figure out how can I stand out next time. Well, today we are going to go through all 4 stages of ALT interviews, from application all the way to getting an offer letter. So you better sit here, subscribe to the channel, join the family, like, comment if you end up enjoying this video. Now, for context, Japan tends to have 4 interview stages depending on the company, but the most common one is 3. We do have the survey, and then we have the phone call, the face-to-face interview. Depending on the company, you'll have the preliminaries. The preliminaries usually come before the face-to-face interview. But for the sake of this video, let us tackle each stage as it comes. So once you hand in your application to a dispatch company, they're going to go through to see if you meet their requirements. And after that, if they feel like you're a good fit for their company, they're going to send you a survey. A survey is basically a form with a list of questions that you have to respond to and then send it back to them. The survey form usually has like questions like, why do you want to teach English in Japan? Why Japan? Can you drive? What part of Japan do you want to live in? Do you have enough funds to actually move and settle in Japan? Now, you have to realize that this survey is not a personality test. It is a test for flexibility. So what are some of the mistakes that you make? Being too rigid. So when you're answering your questions, you can't say statements like, I only want to work in Tokyo. I only want to do blah, blah, blah. I only want one school. I only want junior high school. You're being too rigid, and usually this communicates that you're not flexible enough. Teaching English in Japan requires flexibility because there are going to be positions that are not in Tokyo. Tokyo is very overly populated. So you could have positions in smaller cities, in rural areas. So that form is to basically gauge, is this candidate flexible enough? Even if you can't drive, you want to tell them that, hey, be truthful. I can't drive, but I'm willing to take driving lessons. Are you willing to live in a rural area? Yes, I am. Just be flexible, show enthusiasm to just want to teach, and not necessarily to go and live and explore Japan. Because sometimes people, yes, use teaching English in Japan as a way to enter the country and explore, but you don't want that desire to show in your answers. You want to show flexibility, desire for teaching, your love for children, and basically convince these people that you're actually a great candidate and somebody that would want to bring onto their team. So don't make that mistake. Don't be too rigid. Always show flexibility. It is a flexibility test, not a personality test. Let's move to the phone call interview. This is one of those stages which catches people by surprise. Even me, I was like, what do you mean? A phone call interview? I've never heard of this before. But trust me, it is a very, very important part of the hiring process. You don't want to ignore it just because you feel like, they can't see me, blah, blah, blah. So what are some of the mistakes that we make? Number 1, sounding overly scripted. Now, when they call you, you don't want to give them the impression that you're reading your responses, because they're going to ask you a question like, why Japan? Tell us about your qualifications or your background. What's your background like? You don't want to sound like somebody who's reading a speech or reading from a script. You want to sound natural, bubbly, like you're having a conversation. You're inviting the other person. You're not reading to them. You're talking to them. So even if you want to read and you have pointers, just write tiny points to help guide your thought process, but not sounding like you're, I am blah, 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 blah. You're not script reading. This is not a voice acting, whatever. This is an interview. So make sure that you sound human enough, like you're in a conversation and not reading something to them. The second mistake is not smiling. I know this sounds very like they can't see me, so why should I smile? It shows in your voice. I can feel when somebody is talking to me and they're excited, and I can tell when they're crying. I can tell when they don't want to talk to me. So you want to smile as you speak. And I'm going to give you an example. So, ching, 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 the interview is on the other side and they ask you, oh, so what's your name and where are you from? And then I say, hi, my name is Upendonais Barasa. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a teacher by profession. That's what they hear. But here's a version where I'm smiling. Hi, tell us about your name. Oh, hi, my name is Upendonais Barasa. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I love teaching. I enjoy working with children. Do you hear the tone? The tone is different because in one instance, I'm not smiling. In a different instance, I'm smiling. So that energy, that excitement can be felt through the phone. And that's what the recruiter is looking for. If, can this person interact with strangers, a child, in a cheerful way? If you don't sound excited, they're like, okay, this person doesn't even want to speak to me. They really don't want the job. So they wouldn't offer it to you. Another way is, as much as it's a phone call, don't sound too casual. You want to start by greeting them. But first, because they're the ones who are going to call you, give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. You can say, hello, how are you? And they can say, oh, hello, how are you? How are you doing? My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm from this and this company. So give them the opportunity to speak and actually ask you questions, wait for your turn. But common courtesy is always important. So this is not your friend. Think of it as it's just a recruiter. It's like literally an interview over the phone. The third stage of ALT interviews is usually the preliminaries. Now, this is not common across companies, but there are some companies which will have a preliminary stage, which is basically they will take all candidates that have applied for the ALT position and put them in groups. They're just like online, think of online rooms, put them in groups, and then each group will receive a set of questions that you have to discuss and give your inputs to. For example, they would ask, how do you deal with a stubborn student or a student who's sleeping in class? And everyone in that group has to give their opinion. Now, when you're in such a group, they're watching for certain things. Are you the kind of person that likes to dominate conversations, which means you probably are not good at collaborating or working with other people? So you might not be a great fit because you can't work well with Japanese teachers, for example. So in that setup, you want to speak when it's your turn. Try not to over-dominate the conversation. Respond well to the questions. Don't just sit and be secluded and wait for people to prompt you like, hey, what do you think? You can always ask the other members a question and just try to be as active as you can. Just don't try to be the dominant voice. Don't be shy and not say anything. Try to strike a balance between giving other people the opportunity to speak and also express yourself in the best way. Another mistake in the preliminary stage will be treating that stage as a competition and not collaboration. You don't want to look like you're competing. For example, if somebody gave a point, you shouldn't be the one to say, I don't think so. I think blah, blah, blah. You can still find a way to give your point without, minimizing their point. And every time you try to minimize somebody's point and trying to dominate the conversation, it looks like you're competing to be chosen and not collaborating. Remember, as an LT, you're going to work with teachers, maybe 2 to 3 teachers, many teachers, and you want to collaborate with the teachers rather than imposing your own opinion. So you have to make it a collaboration and not a competition. And lastly, let's move to the face-to-face interview. This is the most important part of the ALT interviews. Mistake number 1, you try to sound native and not clear. And this is a mistake for non-native speakers, to be specific. If you have a Nigerian accent, if you have a Kenyan accent, if you have an Indian accent, don't try to now change your accent to sound American or British. It's going to backfire, my friend. It's going to backfire. Yeah, try to sound clear, not native. Don't try to say water and you're used to saying water. It's going to backfire on you. So that's a very, very huge mistake that people make, because what you don't realize is when you try to be somebody that you're not, you end up making more mistakes because you tend to overthink. Unless you're just really, really, really good with accents, go ahead, do it. But my advice would be just be clear. Don't try and sound native. They're not looking for a native speaker. They're looking for people who can speak English fluently. of course, including native speakers. Another mistake that you make, especially when it comes to answering situational questions, you tend to focus on the teaching methods rather than classroom control. Because as an ALT, you're basically an assistant language teacher. Try not to over focus on your teaching capabilities, try and focus on classroom management. Because as an ALT, the Japanese teacher is the T1 and you're teacher number 2. So you're basically assisting them and helping them. They control the discipline of the class, they control how the class works. But for you, they will decide what teaching methods work. Your work is to support them. So think of more classroom control, like what games can you do to catch the attention of the students? What activities, what gestures can you do to make sure that the students are always participating in your lessons? Another mistake would be not showing teamwork or flexibility. Basically, with your answers, always remember that as an ALT, you're not T1. You want your answers to reflect and include, the Japanese teachers. When you give your answers, you want to show, I would always want to assist the Japanese teacher. I would always ask for opinions on my ideas, let's say activity ideas from the Japanese teachers, something like that. It shows that you first of all know what an ALT position is about, and you know what is expected of you in the classroom, even though you're not an ALT yet. So they just want to see, can this person actually work in a team? Are they flexible enough? So try to show your strengths when it comes to collaboration and teamwork. Another big mistake, because the recruiter is going to ask questions. What would you do if the classroom situational questions? Another huge mistake that people make when answering this question is giving bad examples. Yeah. So if they ask, what would you do if a student in your classroom is not concentrating or is sleeping or is doing other things outside of the classroom work? What are you going to do? And then you say, I'm just probably going to send the student out of the classroom. That's a terrible example. You want to show that you want to capture the student's attention. Think about ideas and ways that could help the student, bring their mind back to class. Is it a song? Is it a dance? Is it asking them to answer a question? Is it, including them in the lesson? For example, you need somebody to help you with flashcards. Ask the student, do you want to volunteer? Because that way it means they have to stop what they're doing and they're going to help you do that thing. If it's like demonstrating a game, rock, scissors, paper, 1, 2, 3, you could ask them to come and do it with you and demonstrate the activity. Give good examples that can actually impress the recruiter to see that this person actually knows what they're talking about. It's not your work to send a student out of the classroom, because I know that's how in some of our countries classes operate. If you don't cooperate, you're out of that classroom, maybe probably kneel outside and wait for the teacher to come and punish you. So Japan doesn't really work like that. So if you're preparing for an LT interview and you've noticed some of the mistakes that you tend to make, I hope this video has helped you prepare better for your next interview. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do leave a comment and like if you ended up enjoying this video. See you again next time. Bye.